welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Reviews. 3 games up this week, the first of which is Mr. Boom's Firework Factory. Not fireworks, just the fireworks singular. Anyway, if you'll recall, we did an interview about this game a few months ago. Not exactly sure the amount of time, but it was fairly recent. And if you missed out on that interview, this is a puzzle game, logic puzzle. I suppose it's best to describe it as a literal conveyor belt puzzle game. Not too, it's not a puzzle type that you see too much out in the wild. I can't call it wholly unique either, because I have seen...
There are other kinds of routing puzzles, but yeah.
I mean, just in this style, Two Tribes Rush comes to mind. Although, it's like exact same premise where you are dealing with objects. In this case, you are dealing with firework crates. And what you manipulate are these arrows. Literal arrows in this case. It is a bit of an unfortunate design aesthetic that they are kind of abstract arrows instead of something that blends in more into the scenery. It's like it doesn't look like it's part of an actual factory. But they change which way you go when you get to a junction on the conveyor belts. Right. And the overall goal of the round level, whatever you want to call it, is to get the crates to the shipping point. And but you have to get them there in the right order because the crates have different labels. Yes. And you have to get them there with enough time in between them for the gravity arm to pick up the one crate before the second crate gets there, because they're full of explosives, so they'll explode if they touch. Yes. Yep. So it's not just a matter of getting things from point A to point B. And indeed, there are also power-ups that show up in some of the levels. I think the first power-up you encounter is a wrench power-up, which actually kind of works the opposite of you'd expect it to go. It's like you think it would fix one of the machines. Actually, it shuts it down for a measure of time, and that's kind of important to that particular puzzle. Yeah. There are other power-ups like glue and whatnot. I'll be honest, I didn't get too far in this game because it ramps up difficulty pretty quickly. Like the footage you're seeing here, this is the level I got stuck at, and I think it's the level my contemporaries here got stuck at, which is actually level. The game has controls for moving the camera, and you actually literally have to use that on some levels to be able to see and also activate certain buttons. Yeah. It's also worth noting that if you do have a crate that explodes, the rubble will become an obstacle. Which, because physics can be pretty random. It's not like the obstacles always form the same way. Yeah. It could just land right in front of one of the machines, and then congratulations, you've automatically lost every other one that was going to come out of that machine. Yep. Yeah, it's like you are not required to get all crates to the end, at least not at the early going, at any rate. I'm trying to remember how many levels there were in this. I want to say around 20?
Something like that, yeah.
Because this game was developed one-man show. And this game doesn't look like it was developed by one person. At least in terms of the outset, it's actually pretty high on the production values. But that's also because this is an Unreal Engine 4 game.
Yeah. Yeah. The graphics and sound and everything is fine. The issues that I had with it, at least, were mostly the puzzle design could be a little better, which is important because it's a puzzle game. Mm-hmm. And it's including the scaling difficulty of the puzzles, and also just I found it, the way my brain works, it was a little bit hard to be able to grasp needing to rotate the screen and rotate the arrows left and right in a hurry sometimes between waves of boxes.
I suppose my issue with this game, the biggest one was probably aesthetical. The actual arrows are too similarly colored to the background, and sometimes it blends in. So, I personally kind of sometimes had a problem actually seeing the arrows and where they pointed.
Mine seemed to be simply just timing. I just kind of sucked at getting all the switches turned in time.
Well,
there was one instance where I was trying to stall a box by sending it back and forth between two thingies, and it just seemed to explode randomly. Sometimes they seem to explode for no reason. I don't know.
Could be on a timer.
Could be.
It's possible too.
But it's also, a lot of the, a few rounds in and the puzzles, you're probably not going to solve it the first go around.
No.
It's these things take a lot of trial and error. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to have to factor that into, because this will get repetitive, especially the longer these things go on. But ultimately, this was an okay puzzle game. Mm-hmm. It's got a solid core. Mm-hmm. It's the execution's a bit iffy. Like I said, the production values are higher than I expected. Indeed, this game features voice acting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mr. Boom yells at you between stages.
Yeah, I mean it's it's not the best voice acting in the world, but I think that was kind of the point.
Yeah, it looks like it's intentionally cheesy.
Well, also it's also very echoey, kind of indicating the state of affairs at Mr. Boom's Firework factory. Mm-hmm. And I think that covers all the major points. There's not a lot to this in terms of its core, but it does have a lot more going than it first looks as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty fun and harmless. It's just it gets hard quickly, and if you can't juggle a bunch of stuff, you're not gonna have an easy time with it.
Yeah, if you don't like the repetition of trial and error, you're not gonna like this.
I suppose okay, and now we get to pricing. So this game is clocking in at $13, $12.99. That's a hard sell. I can sort of see why this game is costing that much, but it's also I'm not sure the core conceit here is quite strong enough to warrant double digits. Maybe $10 at most, $13. I'm going, that's a little too steep for what's on offer here in my estimation. Like, not sure when it's going to go on sale, but that would be my overall purchasing recommendation. Wait for a sale. As far as as a game, I score it, perfectly serviceable puzzle game. Not amazing, but not something that's wasting your time either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if nothing else, there's not too much in the field like it, and even compared to like the aforementioned Rush, it's doing things differently. So it's got a few variances that separate it from, like, Rush is ironically much more of a conveyor belt puzzle game than the actual conveyor belt puzzle game. Like, and yeah, I think that'll about do it for Firework Factory here. Be sure to tune in after the break, as we'll be reviewing Siberian, the Time-Traveling Warrior.